Welcome to BlackUSA.News Morning Show. I'm your host, William Honolulu Jr. Join us as we explore the news and opinions that impact our community. We break down how the major stories have a very personal, local, and racial impact. No topic is off limits, but even if the conversation gets rough, we're always going to keep it real. Greetings and salutations, all my people out there in internet land. I am William Honolulu Jr., and I have the privilege, honor, and joy of being the host of the BlackUSA.News Morning Show. Today's show, you know how I do for you guys. I've been telling you about this for the last couple of weeks. Today is our first installment of Mental Health Monday. And I am so grateful to have Shannon Battle here, who's going to come and lead us through kind of thinking through and grappling with loss, grappling with grief. And we'll talk a little bit about how some of the grieving processes and experiences are unique in the African American community. All right. So, but want to give a big shout out as always to the super producer, Kyle Crazy Horse Morgan, who is doing an amazing job behind the scenes, keeping us straight and together, making sure that we have great guests. We have people lined up like Ms. Battle and like our guest tomorrow, Dr. Monica McCall, who is going to talk with us about dealing with family members who have disabilities. Many of us are in that time of life where we may have a child who has a disability, autism, developmental delay, some physical disability. And oh, hey, Erica. So we got all the therapists and mental health people here. But what was I saying? Wow, I'm like a kitten. Like you see something shiny, it's like, oh, shiny. What were we talking about? But I don't remember, so it's absolutely okay. I think I was talking about. Well, anyway, I'm gonna talk about Mental Health Monday now. I've been excited about this because mental health is a tremendous issue in the Black community. We have, over the course of history, really dealt with mental health in a really community-based way because a lot of the other resources were not available to us. But a lot of those institutions have fallen apart, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we dig in with Shannon later on. But what I was saying, I remember now about Dr. McCall, is that many of us are dealing with a young person who may have a disability, and at the same time, our parents' health or some of our older family members' health may be fading. And what that means is that now many of us have responsibilities of dealing with disabilities and dealing with people with disabilities in a way that we have never had to do before. So that's going to be a really good conversation, and also figuring out what resources we can access to help our family members and to help ourselves. Real talk. So yeah, that's tomorrow. Make sure that you all are listening to and watching BlackUSA.News all week and weekend long. Tasmir had a wonderful show this weekend, talking to Joseph Randall about how economics and nonprofits intersect. Nonprofits are the glue that holds many of our communities together. And nonprofits aren't just, organizations like we think about hospitals and things like that, but our churches are nonprofits. Our schools are nonprofits. And many of those organizations were key in holding our communities together. Now that people outside of our communities have control or greater control and influence and have made decisions about redirecting many of those resources, well, now we're on the back end of it. And so it's really good to understand the role of nonprofits in our community and how we can work with them to really boost economic development and grow things in our community. But let's all stop and talk about the people who make this possible. That's the wrong one. That's Shannon. We're not ready for Shannon yet. I got excited and jumped the gun. You saw me, I jumped the gun. I'm sorry. But as always, you know that we are streaming live on STEM City USA. Again, big shout out to Dr. Tyrone Taborn and the whole team over there. We are I think we're checking, but I think we're the first Black media organization to stream in the metaverse. So that's pretty cool. We're very proud of that. And so make sure that you all check out STEM City USA and get your metaverse on. Edible arrangements. You all know how I feel. What is it, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? You know what it is? It is the pineapple dove with white chocolate ice cream. That is what William loves from Edible Arrangements. But they have incredible fruit as well. All of the fruit has been amazing. I've never had a bad piece of fruit, which is odd. So, and like I told y'all before, nobody has ever picked fruit so consistently other than Mama Honolulu, and I know she don't work there. So we are very happy to have them as a sponsor, and especially their Govins, Randallstown, and Pittsburgh branches. We appreciate the support, and we also appreciate supporting organizations that also support our community. Darker Than Blue would every day. I told you all I'm going to start trying to eat before the show. I haven't been able to pull it off. So whenever I come to this ad, I'm like, oh, I wish I had saved some. Darker Than Blue in Baltimore, Maryland on Charles Street. Not only are they incredible restaurateurs, and the food is amazing, but they are also deeply and heavily engaged in our community. So big ups to Darker Than Blue. Murphy, Falcone, and Murphy. Judge Murphy has been practicing law and making the world better for Black people longer than my adult life. He has been doing it, and he put together a law firm that continues that practice, making sure that if you have any issue with any type of civil litigation, family matter, or what have you, please don't hesitate to reach out to Murphy, Falcone, and Murphy. Also, if there are some policies or something that's happening in your community that you think need to be addressed differently, reach out to them. It does not cost you anything, and guess what? It could change everything. And of course, my business, The Grinding Gang. We want to help you take your business to the next level. We have free membership, and in that membership comes a lot of free resources, tools, templates, and things like that, and access to some of our workshops, absolutely free. So if you are looking to take your business to the next level or really step up your game at all, visit grindinggang.com. So let's see, what else do I need to tell you all? Oh, big shout out also to Lisa Morgan, who was from Keaton Eccles, who was with us on Friday, had a great conversation about personal branding and how we can do that. And not just personal branding, but how your personal and professional brand are more than just your logo and your look. It really is about your operations and your commitment to your identity. So that was awesome. If you didn't catch that, what should you do? Go back, check out Friday's show. Super big shout out and happy birthday to Michelle Holcomb, my bestest friend, and amazing school counselor, and a big birthday shout out to her. And another shout out to Joseph Williams for the United States Patent and Trademark Office. You know we got to make sure we rep our folks. I know dope people, don't I? It's amazing how many dope people I know, and I've had an opportunity through Black Speakers Network, a really good partner for the morning show. I had an opportunity to meet Shannon Battle and had a conversation with her, and instantly was like, yep, you're it. We need to have you on the show at least for a while, talking about mental health and that engagement. Shannon is an author, and she is a coach and a licensed counselor. She's known as the ICANLADY. People come to Shannon when they have needs and need to have their needs met, and recognizing that sometimes that we are the problem in the process. As we get ready to talk with Shannon about grief and grieving, we recognize that we all grieve differently. It is no one structure or no one process that works for us all. But what we also have learned is that our grieving has a lot of cultural implications. And the studies have demonstrated and shown that African Americans, by and large, grieve differently. Asian Americans grieve differently because a lot of our grieving is structured by, or the context of it is set up by our history and how we engage. For many African Americans, the church has been a source of processing, especially when it came to grief. Everybody was involved in the church, and the church created kind of these social standards and mental health standards on how we should navigate grief as a community. As the church has lost, and in the school as well, but as the church and school have lost influence in the African American community, we're struggling. This entire struggle is exacerbated by COVID, which means that even some of our familial engagements that we would normally, or our friends that we would normally rely on to help us process grief, those things aren't available. And so addressing grief and figuring out how we can access resources and what resources we should access becomes critically important as we start moving through this next iteration of our global lives. And we have Shannon Battle here to give us some words of wisdom and some experience from the licensed professional people's perspective on what what we can do and how we can stay safe and healthy and all that other kind of good stuff. Hey, Shannon, can you hear me well?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, cool. Because sometimes my technology gets a little janky, and I'm like, have I been talking to myself for like the last 10 minutes and can't nobody hear me? So
That's embarrassing, but I do that too. You
right,
doing
and
the
so I
whole
don't.
presentation and everybody, you're not reading the chats and everybody was like, we can't hear you, we can't hear you. I'm like, I've talked for 15 minutes and you didn't hear me.
And so yeah, so that's why I just checking like, oh, can you hear me? Jesus, it'd have been
Gotcha.
horrible if you could. Shannon, welcome to the show. Yeah, a fast friend, ladies and gentlemen. And you know what? I keep forgetting that we had a whole lot of time to get to know each other,
Yeah.
off camera or whatever. But now that you're here for the audience,
Yeah.
introduce yourself to them, Shannon.
Well, thank you, first of all, Will.I.Am, for allowing me to share your stage with you. I don't take that lightly. Anytime that I get an opportunity to talk and share some of the things that I've been through, what I've experienced, what I've learned, then I'm just very excited about that. But like you said, I'm Shannon. ICANLADY. Got
I
that
can.
name. Yeah, people started giving me that name. My husband has a clothing line called ICAN.
Hmm.
And my first company, when I opened up a business when I was like 22 years old, it was ICAN and Associates. And then I kept doing things and opening more businesses and becoming more visible, did TV, teen talk shows and stuff, and everything was always ICAN. So next thing I know, people started calling me the ICAN lady. And I was like, okay, well, that has a really good ring to it because that's what I believe. I believe I am the ICAN lady. I can, if I put my mind to it and
Right.
I put my faith in it, then I was like, yeah, I can do that. So yeah. But first and foremost, I am a lover of people and I am a wife of over, oh God, we just celebrated 27 years.
Hmm.
And we have 5 children. I got one baby
Okay.
daddy.
Whoa. So you clearly you can like to be able to manage all of that came out so wrong. I apologize. That did not sound like I wanted it to. I was talking about the role of a mother of 5. That takes a lot. And so that
Clearly I can make a lot of babies and make my husband happy too. Let's not get that twisted
you,
either.
I'm not trying to get in no trouble with Donnie. Donnie be texting me after this, like, we got rules about that stuff. You can't be sexually harassing guests on the show. You ain't slick. You trying to get me in trouble. Don't do that. That's disrespectful. That's disrespectful.
But yeah, so I mean, being a mom and entrepreneur and just navigating through life, I've always had a passion for helping young people. And
Hmm.
that just came from my own disrupted life that many of us have unfortunately experienced
Right.
and going through our own different types of complications, traumas. And it just, just cycled into, okay, how can I do this to make it matter? How does
Right.
my life really matter in all of this? And also, how can I make some money while it's mattering? But
Well, because that is a contextual piece that even as we're talking, as we get ready to transition into talking about grief, that
Mhm.
that context matters. Like,
Yes.
there are resources like there. I know some people when they have lost, they shut down or they go massively shopping. If you don't have resources like that, you may not have those opportunities. So I'm really grateful that you bring to the table the experience of navigating multiple complicated roles that are complicated in and of themselves by themselves,
Yeah,
and
but
the
it's not
experience
always
of bringing them
easy.
together.
It's
Hmm?
but it's not always easy, and it's a great challenge for, especially when you were talking about, culturally, how we deal with our own grief, how we deal with loss. Some of
Hmm.
us, we were taught not to grieve loss. And, we were taught, what the definition of strength was. And so culturally, as we talk about those things, we really need to redefine the messaging that we received from parents, grandparents, to make
Right.
sure that we're articulating clear messages to our children. So that's what I do. My whole like if I had a foundational,
Hmm.
scripture, motto, it would be in all you're getting, get an understanding. Because oftentimes we're just
Okay.
repeating things that we've heard out of habit, and we're
Hmm.
not using our mind to really think about what the meaning behind that is. And that's what we need to begin to understand. And especially when we start talking about grief, is what's happening as a result of this loss. And we're always trying to just dive at, okay, well, this person died, or you did this, this, this was been removed or whatever. But
Right.
now I need to understand how this is showing up in my life.
And I think to that point is the understanding that each of us is different. I know you and I talked about this off camera. And our grieving process should be different. And I shared a story with you, and I'll share it with the audience. I had a friend who lost her son. And this was her baby boy. Like, he was a football, wrestling, choir, honor roll. Like, he done all of these things, and he died in a car accident in a car that she bought for him. And so she was dealing with grief in a very different way than her husband was. Her husband experienced the loss, but it wasn't just the loss of a son for her. It was a loss of a whole future that he was going to have. It
Hmm.
was not just, it was the how she was going to feel, the pride that she was going to have going to these things. So it wasn't just the loss of the son, which is devastating by itself. And so it was the loss of future. And so I think it was like the 5th year anniversary came, and every year she was shut down. She couldn't process or do anything around the week before and after his death date or something like that. It was a while around his death date and his birthday. And her family members came to her. It's like, it's been 5 years. Like, this whole shutting down for a month or whatever is no good. And I was like, well, wait, that's not appropriate. Like, she is grieving her loss. It is not the same as while he was related to everybody, and he was everybody's nephew, son, cousin. Um, he was her baby, and so that relationship was different. So her grieving was different.
Right.
And so, if you could talk a little bit about the differences on actually, just, you know what? I apologize. Start me off from the basics. When we're going to be talking about grief, what are we actually talking about?
We're talking about the fact that we've lost something significant and we're experiencing an overwhelming pain behind
Hmm.
this loss.
Hmm.
So people, you have you ever, and I want to take this practically so we can really understand it. Have
Hmm.
you ever felt someone was being excessive over a loss, maybe like over a pet?
I,
Have you ever?
I I used to. I used
Okay.
to. Oh, well, okay, all right. Pets. Actually, you know what? How about this one? One of my friends, her niece broke up with this little boy. They had been gone together for 3 days, and she was devastated. Like,
Hmm.
she was, oh my God. And what if they talk about me? And it was like, yo, little seventh grade girl.
Hmm.
Like, and we had to have the conversations. Like, this is important to her. It may seem trivial to us,
Hmm.
but for her, the world has changed. And so,
Right.
yeah, I get it. There are things that we trivialize that other people are really going through that are really big deals for them. But for us, it's like, ain't even that serious.
Right. And then so when we're looking at it, we have to understand, and like you were saying that we're all different, but it's just really a really deep sorrow and, connected to the pain of what you're
I
experiencing
think I'm
because
getting.
that I'm sorry, what'd you say? Did we lose each other? Okay, Will is frozen, so I'm going to keep talking because I don't know if I'm frozen or if Will is frozen. Isn't it so awkward when things happen like this and we don't know where it's coming from? I think this is that metaverse he was talking about. We're streaming all throughout. Can you unmute?
Yeah,
There you
I'll
go.
see why you have backups of your backups.
That's what I was just explaining to everybody. I was like, I don't know if it's him, if it's me, but I'm gonna keep talking. And this is
Yeah.
that thing you talked about, the metaverse. So it may
Yes.
have some galaxy implications going
Oh
on that
my
we don't.
God. Using up too much damn bandwidth. I gotta move. You know what? I used to like living here, but now I'm like, okay, this whole bandwidth issue, like
Oh,
anyway, I'm grieving the loss of my Wi-Fi. That's what the hell is happening right now.
yes, yeah. So grief, what we were saying before is, it's just the pain accompanied with loss,
Hmm.
because it reflects, what we loved, who we loved, everything. It's just really all encompassing with that. So, people when we look at how, the bereavement that they have over the loss of, like you were saying, your friend's son, the
Hmm.
perception of that, like you said, she anticipated more things to come. And now death says that all of that has ended. It's
Right.
final and it's never going to happen. So when she set up a visual for what her life was going to be like as it was with the interaction and connection with her son, now that has been voided and removed, and she has to develop a new reality to move forward through that. And that's where it makes things complicated, because when you have a significant attachment, and then we even see it sometimes too with people who weren't really close, growing up. So say they had a father who abandoned them as a
Hmm.
child, but
Hmm.
they lost the father, and you're asking, well, why are you in such devastation about a man who wasn't actively present in your life? Well,
Hmm.
in my loss, I lost the potential of us reconnecting and having a valuable relationship. I will never have. So you'll hear definite words when people are talking about their grief. I'll
Hmm.
never, in that, the finalized type words, which puts them in a place where they can get stuck, and a lot of
Right.
people get stuck there, and it becomes problematic or concerning when it's happening continuously over a certain amount of time, and it is showing up in your life in ways that it's causing you not to be able to do your daily functions like your work, your interaction with other people, just your mindset, your work, your self-esteem, your self-worth, and then it can lead to other types of clinical outcomes like major depression, separation anxiety, and things like that. Not trying to be too clinical,
And
but
those are all very real things. Well, no, I think part of the issue is that we don't spend enough time in the clinical space. We
hmm
try to make it colloquial. And I'm grateful for you to do it. So talk a little bit about the differences or what you've identified in African American grieving, or in your experience, are there any?
Well, so I let me just say first, I work primarily with African Americans. The services I've provided
Okay.
have always been Medicaid services, and we already know when it comes to the way the system is designed, a lot of the services that they'll get on the mental health side of it are lower at risk communities, and our large percentage of people that we serve, for me, are African Americans. So I
Okay.
can talk
So
about.
that's pretty much your population that you deal with.
Yes, yes, that's pretty much
Got
the population of what I deal with. And a lot of them just not have been taught what grief is. They don't understand. They understand that they've lost someone. And then I have like older women that are maybe close with their mom, and then the mom has died, and they don't know how to move past. Am I getting
Sorry.
feedback? I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was my fault. I'm still
Okay.
experimenting, trying to get stuff good.
Okay, no worries. Yeah. So when they may have lost their mom, and they're like, I'm not going to be able to do this. I'm not going to be able to go through life with it. My mom was my best friend. Everything that they've done now as an adult, they've associated, they built a different, a deeper bond with them. And it's like we always, because we don't have the conversations about death, and we act as though, when it happens, even though it may happen untimely, it should never be unexpected, because we all have an expiration point. And so conversations, I know, typically when it comes to the Black community, we don't tell our family members when we're sick, And
Right.
oftentimes, parents will be suffering with a disease and never go to the doctor. And when they do get to the doctor, you're hearing, call the family in because you only have, 12 out, maybe 12 hours with this person.
Right.
And then another thing that I also notice with our community is that we really don't learn the skills to just process basic loss. So when we have a major
Mm,
loss, we're just not equipped to be able to handle that heaviness of that particular challenge in our life. So, for example, if the girl that you were talking about that had a breakup,
mhm.
we're taught, what are her friends telling her? What are her family telling her? Get on with it. There's plenty of guys
Right.
out there,
Oh, one little boy, it's not even that big a deal, and you'll be
right?
so many more, blah, blah, blah.
And then if she's still, having this longing and dealing with this pain for so long, then now we're looking at, when you gonna finalize that and move on? Why are you still tripping over him? And we don't allow people to really feel their emotions. We think that there should be an expiration point when we feel like it's too
Right.
much for us. And that is a
Right.
problem because we are really not supportive of one another as we experience life and tragedy and loss.
Mhm.
So as a friend, if I'm your friend and you went through a divorce
Mhm.
and you are grieving, this relationship and it's been say 3 years, if I do not, if I can no longer connect with that and it's just,
Mhm.
becoming a burden to me as your friend, I may start pushing back and I may,
Right.
just, keep you at a distance because it's not now it's bothering me because it's taking too long for you. So it's a mixture of everything coming at you from your environment, coming at how you were brought up and just how you perceive things and how you choose to walk through that. And it's not always an easy choice. People don't choose to be stuck. They just
Right.
get there and they don't know how to become unglued without becoming undone all over again.
And one of the things that you bring up is one of the great reasons to work with a therapist, a licensed professional, somebody who that is their job, because unlike family, they had this is what they do. They're not trying to manage your needs in with all of the other needs. And it's one of the things that we forget is that sometimes the complication between our relationship is what makes our overarching situation, the grief process, longer, because
Hmm.
you're trying to help me, but we already got something going on. We may have, let's say, a husband and wife have been having marital problems, and then someone else dies. So it may be difficult for me to support you because we are still dealing with something else. And for me, that has been one of the biggest pieces about counselors and therapists, professional people, that has been helpful, is that they have a level of objectivity.
We do, and we're not afraid of your anger. So, what shows up a lot of times with African Americans, particularly women, and I
Hmm.
always tell women as I'm talking and mentoring them, don't become that angry black woman. And you become that angry black woman when you don't allow yourself to experience the full scope of all the emotions that God gave you. And you judge yourself according to the weight of how you handle a situation, how fast you overcome something instead
Hmm.
of looking at yourself in terms of I have the capacity to experience this journey of life at every level of human existence. I just get to do that. And
Right.
I think that when it's accompanied with the anger, we get angry at ourselves and then
Right.
we're angry at just the world oftentimes. And it's just because we just have become, we can't figure out, we can't make meaning, we can't get that understanding. And so when you come to a therapist isn't afraid of your anger. And I want you to come
Right.
with your anger. I want you to come with your attitude. I want you to come fully as you are because we need to get to the heart of the matter. But, you need to be truthful about where you are. And so when you're dealing with people around you, it shows as anger, but my anger is showing on my face and it may be showing in my attitude, but I can't barely breathe. My heart is broken. It's like you can touch everything on a physical pain level. If your head is hurting,
Hmm.
you can what areas in the head it's hurting.
Right.
If you break an arm or a ligament or bone. But when you're talking about pain, that thing just happens so deep. You can't get to it. You know what I'm saying? You just know it's
Right.
there. So it's hard to articulate that. And a therapist
And
just,
one of the
helps you to be able to see, what's puncturing and what's aggravating it.
The other thing that therapists are also able to do is utilize experience and training so that they can identify things that a layperson may just overlook.
Hmm.
In the practice of law, I've had this happen where somebody will say, I'll ask them to, deep dive and what happened in their situation, and they'll be focused on this one part. I'm like, yeah, that was wrong, but like it's not really illegal. And then they say, oh, and they did this too, and it's like, wait, what? They did what? And it's like sorry, yeah, I'll get excited. It's like, and it's like they did what? And so like now that thing you didn't know was a big deal for me has changed everything. The stuff you were focused on wasn't a big legal deal, but this
Hmm.
little piece that you were going to throw away is the crux of everything. And I think that also happens with therapists.
Hmm.
You all have been trained to identify some of those things that I would be like, oh, and especially if we come from the same space, I may just think that's natural. I
Hmm.
remember there were a lot of people that I've met over my lifetime where when we get in rooms and people start disclosing their sexual abuse history and stuff like that, I've heard people go like, well, that's just the way. I mean, that happens to like everybody, at least once or twice in life, right? Like they have grown up in an environment where that's just something that happens.
Hmm.
So when they're trying to coach you or when they're trying to talk to you, they're coming from the best place. Oh, this is just something that happens. It's okay.
Hmm.
The way you avoid it is, and they start working with you from the best of intentions, from
Hmm.
their dysfunctional place. Therapists have been trained, oh no, that's not good. Like, oh no, I get it. The problem is that it happens to everybody in your community, and we need to address that as opposed to,
Hmm.
oh, this is how you deal with it. So how has your training helped you to engage better?
It helped me become a better listener. We just want to
Uh,
fix things. We don't like to feel uncomfortable with someone else's pain. Think about it.
mm,
When they call you and they say, "My son just died," what you say? What you gonna say? You know what I'm saying?
you want
What
to
are
make
you
it better.
gonna say?
Yeah,
You
you
want
want to
to
make
make
it better.
it, and you want to do things like, okay, let's go out, let's go do this.
Let me
And
bring you some ice cream. Let's get drunk. Let's turn up for what? Let's and again, our friends are trying to help, but I remember there was a period of time it was like you want you to bring the bottle. Whenever a friend of mine called, I had a bottle ready. Actually, for a while, because so many tragedies were happening, I kept like a mobile little bar in the back because it was like there was always something happening. Well, that might
and
be a
then
separate issue about why I did that, but that's not for this show.
yeah, but then you also have to be careful too. So like Will I Am, you talk, you make people feel good with your words. But there are times when it comes to certain, types of loss that people experience where you as the friend have to learn to shut up. You know what I'm saying? You have to learn
That's big.
not
Yeah.
to say anything. And so now we have to, start identifying with another part of who we are that we may not all to be comfortable with, because now we don't feel like we showing up, we don't feel
Right.
like we doing the right thing for you. And when people start feeling like that in the best of the intentions, then they pull back because they feel like, they're doing more damage and they're doing, benefit to the relationship. So I would just say in that situation, because we don't, that person doesn't know how to deal with it. So,
Right.
even me as a professional, I can only go with where the person is. I can't, even though everybody has this potential to overcome and to flourish.
Right.
Unfortunately, some people just don't come out of it. And it's not because they don't have the right resources, they don't have the right support. They just, just allow themselves to stay there for, just other types of reasons. And for some, that's a place where they choose to be. I want to be here. I want to be here, be the woman in mourning or be the father in mourning. I've, when I'm dealing with parents who have lost kids to suicide, those type of things is like, how do I give myself permission to move on? You that they're when they're looking at all of that, it's a lot. It's a lot for the mind to process. And then when you were saying that, as a therapist, when you were practicing law, it was that little thing that they talked about. You were focused on one thing, and then that one little thing came out, it made it bigger. Well, for a lot of other people, they can't see the multiple layers. It's like being in a concert next to your friend, and your friend is talking to you, but all you can hear is everything hitting at you at every angle, all the sounds, all the noise. But the person is right there talking to you. And it's not that they're not speaking, it's just that you're flooded with an overwhelming, conversations of everything else going on in your brain. And that's what happens when a lot of people can't identify what really is going on with them. It's the big thing. Well, I'm just mad, I'm hurt, I'm lost, this, but it's all those other things, I didn't get a chance to do this. If only I had more time. It's that coulda, shoulda, woulda, and
Right.
that places them in those, positions where it then becomes a traumatic experience for them.
And I think one of the things is I've been, studying trauma and really trying to work through my issues and also help some of my clients on the business consulting side. I realized that trauma like grief is a very particular process about you. And a lot of it has to do with what your expectations are and the stories that you tell yourself in your head.
Mhm.
So my friend, her husband, this is my son, I'm proud of him today, but it was kind of more on a day-to-day basis, not proud of him on a day-to-day basis, but he was living life on a day-to-day basis. She
Mhm.
had planned out his life for a long time, and where he was, the concerts that they were going to do, and what
Mhm.
college, and like she had built some of that up. And to the point that you were talking about before, also this whole idea of what life should have looked like. I should
Mhm.
have said something else. I should have
Mhm.
spent more time. And so is there a way to identify, like, because again, I'm struggling with this, because like looking for the root causes of grief. There's a loss that occurred that in the story in our head should not have occurred. So whether it's the 12-year-old girl who the boy shouldn't have broken up with her, or if it's the 45-year-old man whose father shouldn't have died. Like,
Mhm.
there are stories about what should happen, and the world does not look like that now. And so, in my experience, has been a lot of it has been trying to process that noise you're talking about. Like,
Mhm.
well, there's so much now happening. There's so much information. What about everything else I thought? Who else down do I need to talk to? Because I don't want to miss anybody else dying and feeling regret. All of the stuff. And I'm grateful. It sounds like that therapists kind of just help you. Okay, no, it's like a hearing aid. It's like, no, cancel noise canceling. It's like,
Mhm.
okay, we can listen to the band because we cancel the decibels around us here, or I can cancel out everything else and hear you because my therapist has said, help me understand what is important, what's not important, how it all fits together. Does that make sense, or am I like?
No, it absolutely makes sense. And when you were talking about that, it reminded me of, think about when you were younger and your parents were teaching you, absolutes. And when you're growing up, say
Mm,
between, early, after toddler, your elementary, age-ish,
mhm,
they're telling you that if you touch the stove, you're gonna get burnt. If you cross the street without looking, then you're going to get hit. Then they tell you, if you be good, good things
right.
will happen. If you be bad, then bad things will happen. Well, those are the ways that, teaching, and while we were developing those types of um, ways that parents were helping us to navigate and to grow through life. Those were the absolutes, and we used to see things in absolutes. We saw things very black and white. But
Mm-hmm.
now, as you get older, it becomes a little bit more gray, and a lot of people now have difficulty interpreting the gray. So because they can't interpret the gray and make meaning of the gray, what do? They do what they were taught when they were younger. They go back to that developmental phase of just going to, it's either all of this or all of that. It's either black or it's white. So that's why a lot of people, get stuck, because they go through either two types of things, and it's a little bit more clinical, but they either, go through accommodation or they go through assimilation with, how they're
Right.
processing their grief that they're going through. And so that's why it's important for them to get to someone that can help them understand how this has caused conflicting beliefs now, especially now if you're telling me God is good and I'm in the church and I'm a Christian. Now I see this a lot too with our faith-based clientele,
Mhm.
that if God answers prayers and God loves me, he's all these great things, why did he take my son? And then you start, begin to reflect on, how does this really look in terms of what I thought I really believed? Do I really believe what I thought I believed? And so when you're looking at, a loss, that's everything that's going on. That's those that's what's going on, that iceberg, beneath the surface, that people, have to begin to allow to come up and submerge, because the subconscious is always rolling, it's always,
Right. There's always thoughts.
yeah, it's always things going on. So, you have to begin to be able to ask questions that, thought evoking questions, doing a lot of probing that helps people to really understand what they believe now. Because guess what? As a result of this may change your beliefs. And your family may not want you to change your beliefs because this is the way that
Yeah.
they believe. But, now you have a different experience. And so now this is why life begins to look different for people and they get
Right.
afraid of it.
And again, I think a lot of that goes into the way we process grief and the way that we process trauma. And to your point about the simplicity of black and white, one of the things that I think, as we are examining that and looking at the impact of it in grief, it goes beyond just your developmental stages or the people who are trying to help you are raised and develop. It goes into our marketing. If you take this pill, everything is okay. It goes into our healthcare. Go see the doctor or go to the emergency room, and everything should be okay.
Well, let
We
me just interject right there. So you said with the marketing with the pill, they say they market it to say if you take this, but remember it's all in perception and what you choose to hear. Because what don't we pay attention to
the
after they
side
tell
effects,
you this? All them daggone side effects, things you
but
never ever ever heard of, but you
but
hear what you want to grasp. You hear what seems like a solution, but then you don't examine the weight of the consequences with it. So, and
absolutely.
again, it goes to listening.
Well, not just listening, but also realizing, to your point, where your preconceived notions come from. Because if we've been taught, my thing is that the systems, marketing, economics, healthcare, education, are all piggybacking on that simplicity. That is why we end up in things like the election was stolen or it wasn't. The that your candidate is a good candidate, or he's perfect, or he's horrible. These kind of polarizations based on the stories that we tell ourselves in our head kind of impact our ability to grieve and the resources or advice we get, because people still want to help you and give you a simple answer. This should be simple. Everything in life should be simple. And this spills into relationships. When the relationship doesn't work, it's because something else needs to happen. Oh, we just need some more of something, as opposed to sometimes it just works. Sometimes things just won't work. Sometimes bad things happen. Sometimes, every time, people die. And so we try to pretend that death isn't coming for us all. And one of the things that I've experienced is that when people die, my mortality becomes a bigger issue to me. And the
Hmm.
story in my head about what I should do kicks in. And so how do we navigate the stories in our head about what we should have, could have, and would have done?
And that's really complex even when you say that, because there are just certain things that happen when we lose, when we go through big losses. We want to be what. So now that you said, like when you said that, when mortality happening around you, and now how life really gets real to you, in essence, you want to be safe and you want to be in control. And so you start doing things to make sure that you're able to maintain a high level of safety and
Mm-hmm.
control, which will then, change different viewpoints of what you have, viewpoints about how you interact socially with others, what you do to your body, exercise, and those types of things. And so we have to begin to look at, okay, well, what is the alternative viewpoint here? What are we looking at? What are another way of thinking about this is that it's happening to you, because your form of safety and control may be different from someone else's who's trying to remain safe and control. And then now, they have issues that involve trust, intimacy. So all of those are impacted, when they have a loss. And then so, like, if that person I said was a person of faith, they may have an issue trusting God now. And then so now
Right.
you have to begin to help them to work those things. So you just have to look at, okay, as a result of this loss, what's showing up in my life now? What has changed? When I used to be very free spirited and just, because like you'll have parents who have lost kids, but they still have kids in the home, but they keep them sheltered. They keep them
Mm-hmm.
close now. They don't allow them to experience, going out, unsupervised, because they still hold themselves, responsible for the loss of the
Yeah.
other child.
And so you identified four things: safety, control, trust, and intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
We might have to do a show on each one of those, because in my last set of existential crises, um, I came to the conclusion that all of these are intellectual constructs that don't truly exist in real life. Safety is a feeling. Control is a feeling. I talk. We talk about control here, and the example I use is like I have an entire schedule for tomorrow, but I can't control whether I wake up tomorrow or not. Like that is
Mm-hmm.
the my life is beyond the scope of my control, and so if my life is beyond the scope of my control, then how am I to believe that I can control anything? Everything on
Because
that.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so like but see, that's more of a generalized framework of thinking about it. So when I
Hmm.
say something like trust,
Right.
I, I, I'm not in the healthcare medical side, right? So if
Hmm.
you were having a heart attack and I was the only person there, would you trust me to give you a a heart transplant, or to do anything?
At that point, wouldn't have many choices, because it's like, hey, lady, you're here. Here's go
Well,
on YouTube real quick and
well,
see
let me
how you
tell you.
can help
Well,
me.
I'm not a stylist at all. So would you trust me to cut your hair?
So you keep bringing up. You clearly didn't notice how it's bald, but I get your point. So I'm with you. That I understand that there are people who are not qualified to do the things, and I would never trust them to do it
Hmm.
unless I had no other
So,
choice.
so what I'm saying is, when you're saying, okay, well, that's just a feeling, that is a state of being. Safety is a state of being. That's why you lock your door when you get out your car. That's why you lock your door when you go in your house, because there are some elements of being safe, and that's just the state of being, what we're required to
Yeah,
do. That's a
but
basic need, is to be safe.
and again, I push back on that, because the reality is that you don't know whether you're safe or not.
Hmm.
And that's my thing. That has been, at least for me, one of the grieving pieces. It was
Hmm.
like, this friend of mine did all the right thing. Like one of my dear friends, Dr. Boyer Freeman, passed away recently. He was vaccinated, boosted, wore his mask, did all of these things, and and was safe. But the reality is, and so again, like I said, this was also in the middle of an existential crisis. So I'm not
Hmm.
saying it came out at the best place, but it was this idea that when I lock my door, it makes me feel safe. I have no idea if a SWAT team is coming and breaking down my door, because the reality is that the door locking can only stop some of the danger. I am, there are so many things that are out, and this was for me the idea of control.
Hmm.
Me locking the door does not keep me safe, even from external threats, because there are windows, there are bombs, there are, whatever. And so for me, it was like, and again, this was my process, was once I got beyond the part that I thought that I could be safe, I was
Hmm.
able to recognize that there were more things that I can do to enhance this concept of safety. Because I was just locking the door, but I wouldn't go, and using your metaphor, I wouldn't go around and check the windows. Because
Hmm.
locking the door, I grew up knowing when you lock the door, everything was okay. But I grew up in, Crestwell, North Carolina, not the middle of Baltimore City.
Hmm.
And so even what I do to stay safe has to be different. And so this idea of safety, and I've seen people who, that again, trying to cling to it, like the mother holding her child close to her after the other one dies. I'm trying to keep them safe, but you still can't do that. And
But
so that's what I'm saying. Are those one of the, is that really the direction to go in, to
it,
try to
it
find more safety?
and again, it goes as far as perception, and what you're looking at. You're looking, see, that's that black and white talking. That's that absolute. I have no control over it. So guess what? Let the chips fall where they may. And that's how,
No,
a lot of, but a lot of people believe that a lot, and especially, when
absolutely they do.
they've experienced things that they did their best, when that woman
Yes,
did her best to
yes,
to be a good wife, to be, that nurturing mother, and her husband still walked out on her, or her kids
yep,
still died. She did her best on that job and they still fired her. When you look at those things, now
yes,
you have to ask yourself, okay, well, I took the necessary precautions and I,
yes,
did the most to make the best of this situation. But you have to understand that, as a result of that happening, no, you didn't choose for those other outcomes to happen, but it
yes,
wasn't because, you weren't taking precautions. You didn't do what was
absolutely.
necessary, because you do have a responsibility to do those things because
Absolutely.
nobody else will do it for you. So I don't think it's necessarily a feeling, but I think it's just those precautions that we put in place to minimize the impact of something great happening. That's why we tell people,
Yes.
let's track your phone. Just because, my kids got trackers, I can see where they're at. It doesn't mean that I can prevent a bad thing from happening to them if they're,
Yeah.
in some type of compromising situation. But it
Yes.
does give that reassurance of knowing that, you know, we're aware that no, we
Yeah.
don't have control over, how things happen, but we can do things to, make sure that we're doing better with ensuring that we're safe.
Absolutely. And again, I don't want to suggest that this is, devil may cry, throw caution to the wind, but it is, for me, what it did is it helped me focus my resources more effectively. Because the idea before was that I had this amazing amount of control over all of these things, and I had to be on top of this and on top of that and on top of this and on top of
Mhm.
that. And especially in the grieving process, when you got to make plans for funerals and you got to figure out, are you going to go, and how does all of this stuff work? This idea that I can make any of this actually happen was problematic for me. And what I realized is when I there were things that I wasn't going to be able to control. And so what I did is I moved my resources from those things and trying to get this person to think this way, and then, well, no, I can't control that. So let me
Mhm.
try to move my resources. And it also helped me support people differently because I moved my resources, instead of trying to fix it, to just trying to support them through it, because I
And
realized
the
I had no control over it.
Right, and to your point there, then it decreases those phobias that people get as a result of trying to control everything around them.
Yes.
So then, as long as you're doing that, because when people do have issues with safety and control, a lot of times they'll be socially withdrawn, or they'll be very
Or they
avoidant,
start
and then they
drinking.
just, yeah, they have phobic responses. Like women, all men, it's that generalized thinking. So guess what? I'm not going to go out. I'm not going to put myself in a situation where I'm, going to be preyed upon. And now I'm looking at it, okay, if I see a man, he's just going to prey on me because, I was
That's all they
victimized in
really
a
want.
relationship. Yeah. So you just want to make sure that anytime that, and especially us in our community, that we allow people to experience their feelings. We're acting like
Mm-hmm.
how other people see us when we get angry. Like it's something to be afraid of. Anger is a
Oh,
natural
we
emotion.
No, no,
And
no.
so
Let's go back. I'm sorry, we got to stop and talk about that. We ain't got a lot of time, but you just brought up a whole new type of thing right there. Because you're absolutely right. It is how we are socialized to respond to certain stimuli, the coping mechanisms that we had available, and the ones that we were taught that lead us to these things as we get older, right?
mhm.
And
And
so
then
if that, okay, go ahead.
so in terms of grief and like when anger shows up, so like when I deal with people who are angry, adults who get angry, kids who get angry, some of them feel better when they have a release, right? When they can hit something, when they can bust something. That's why I'm really thankful for like businesses now where they have, like, I know in my area here in North Carolina, they got wreck and release. Me and
Yep.
my husband did that, and then one time we did axe throwing because me and him, we were going through some intense conflict, and he was like, we need to get some of this out physically. Let's go throw some axes. I was like, you sure you want to trust me with this axe right here? But
Like right
we
now,
went and we
right
did things
now.
like that. I know, right? Like now, yeah, and we did, and he's alive.
Actually, you should have been the one that being like, well, why are you suggesting this, sir? I don't
See,
know.
that wasn't my perception because I was thinking he better be afraid of this lion right here, But so like so in terms of like when people need to hit things, I say, okay, well, is there something in your house that you can hit without damaging stuff around you? It's the result of the anger. I'm not afraid of you hitting something. I'm not afraid of you. If you're at your 10 and it's very intense, that I'm
You
saying
give
now,
me
okay, now you just have to breathe and meditate because when you're at your 10, you don't see nothing else but just getting it out so you
something
can feel
has to
better.
happen. Yeah.
Yeah, something has to happen. So it's just teaching people, okay, if you've gone through loss and then you're mad, or okay, so like I'm a Christian, and then I had a friend in church who lost her son to cancer many years ago, and she was cursing out everybody, God and everything, but I didn't judge her. And so she was able to be who she needed to be in all of those, influx of emotions that were hitting her, from every side. And that's what we need to learn, I think, as a community of supporting one another, how to let people grieve properly.
Mm.
Because a lot of people, we just don't take that time. Even biblically, they had a time of mourning. They had a time when they
Absolutely.
didn't do nothing but
Now you got three
mourn.
days. Now you got 3 days, and you better have a doctor. You
And you
better bring
better,
something from the.
yeah,
Yeah, and
and you,
but make sure before you leave, could you make sure that you pass all your files and passwords to Jenny, because
that
it's
part.
the day of the
Yes.
funeral. That's the day we have the meeting. And again, we understand that you can't be there, but could you really? I hate to bother you right now
Yeah,
while you're
yeah.
mourning the loss of your son, your parent, your blah blah blah.
And then be respectful to the person who has the loss. Ask them, what do you need from me right now? And you let them know, like, look, I don't know what to say and I don't want to be insensitive. What do you need from me right now? Because, sometimes we think, they want to talk, but they just really want you to listen. Sometimes they just want your presence and they just want to sit there and just not be alone in their feelings and just have someone to help shoulder that weight. So when we're talking about what we do culturally, we need to really look at that Underground Railroad mentality. We need to look at, okay, stop saying that I'm good, my household is good, and then you just letting everybody defend for themselves. No, you go see about your brother, your sister, you go support them, and then you come back home. But we don't do that. So I think we just need to figure out, how do we help people be emotionally well as they go through their grief? So if it's becoming an issue where is very symptomatic, where you just have like intense sorrow, pain, and you keep ruminating over it, and say it's been like
Mhm.
3 months, 6 months, you just can't get past of it, you don't focus on anything else but that person's death, and it keeps
Right.
replaying, or the extreme focus, and it makes you either extremely focused on it or you're excessively avoidant. You're just
Right.
not, you're just not going to think about it. Don't bring it up. Don't bring no colors that look like their favorite colors. Don't drive the car that, don't look at any car like that person used to drive, and those type of things. And then if
Yeah.
you're like numb and you just detach from everything, you need to get help. And so as Black people, we think that, oh, I'm gonna be okay, this is just a normal part of it. No, that's not normal, and yes, you need to get help.
Okay, so next week, you know what I think we should talk about? I know we had some email exchanges, but the showing up as Black. That, because that's a really big deal, and I think it also, in the context of grieving, how we believe we should show up as a Black person. What does support look
Mhm.
like from the elder? Well, it's like, oh, we don't get taught how to just be us, how to have
Mhm.
genuine relationships. Many times they are status relationships. Like, I remember for a long time, I was the person that people came to when there were problems, so I
Mhm.
didn't have the ability to have problems.
Right.
You know, I was like, oh, I didn't realize the magnitude until I tried to go to a friend of mine. I was like, yo, they were like, yo, I don't even know, like, if you concern, like, and I was like, whoa, what? And now I'm like, calm down. It's not as bad as that. Maybe it's just so now I'm moving from trying to get support, that I've
Mhm.
triggered their fear, and now I have to
Mhm.
shift from my need to be supported to now supporting them in their
Mhm.
fear. And I think, that's one of those showing up Black things. A
Mhm.
lot of times we judge ourselves, or we're judged about the sacrifices we make for other people, not about
Mhm.
how well we take care of ourselves. Hell,
Mhm.
sometimes taking care of yourself well is considered selfish in our community. And that's some
Right.
shit I think we should talk about. Real
Right.
talk. And I got
We
you
can
here for
talk
at least
about
3 more weeks,
it.
baby. I got you here at least 3 more weeks. So we're going to talk about some real good stuff.
Oh, I
So,
appreciate it.
I am so grateful to, and the funny part is, like, I was like, how did so much time pass? Like, it's just been going. Like, I am so overjoyed with my job. I get to talk to dope people and learn great things. I might even have to talk to Donnie about taking this to a 2-hour show, because there's so much more stuff I need to talk about. But we cool, because I got you for like another 3 weeks at least.
Yes,
And
you do.
at least, because we're gonna talk about that as we get near the end, about because I've had fun today, so I think we should probably do.
Absolutely. And well, because the thing is, it's not really right or wrong, Will I am. It's just it's curiosity. We really need to be curious. We have different experiences. We have different, like, I talk differently. I'm from the South, so you hear my accent, but it doesn't mean I'm slow. You know what I'm saying? But you speak fast, but it doesn't mean that
I'm smart.
you're
It doesn't mean that I'm smart, but let's get it clear. I'm smart because I'm smart. I don't want. I got test scores and shit like that, so let's not get it twisted. But yeah, the fact that I speak fast isn't indicative of me being smart. Okay, you want to let
absolutely.
people
So
understand
all
what
I'm
we're dealing
saying,
with.
and I think that way, as we become more curious, we can start asking the right questions. and then we can stop, putting these judgmental biases that we have, against one another and what we think, how another person's life should show up, and we would be able to, really start unifying, as a people. And so things
Mm.
like this, it just really it sets the example. And so I hope, that the people watching, have really, found something that helps them to be a little bit more curious. Remember, and all you're getting, get an understanding.
And all you get an understanding. You know what? I think that's the word of the day. And all you get an understanding.
Mhm.
Amen, amen, and amen.
Shonda.
All right, Shannon. I will see you next Monday. All right.
All right. Thank you all. And you all have a great,
Nope.
remember, if you if you want to just, follow with
Oh, get it.
me, yes, my website is www.shannonbattle.com. Everything you need to know, all my social handles, all of that is there. If you ever have any questions, just feel free to send an email.
But for those of you all who can't remember names and stuff like that, I can lady. One word, I can lady. Like, and it's funny when you go on and you just type in I can, because I was like, oh, because I look at people's nicknames because I got nickname issues. That's in another show. I'll send you
Mhm.
a clip of that, but I got nickname issues. And so like when I see people's nicknames, because branding is important. And when I put yours in, I was like, yep, it's always her. Okay, so I know this
Mhm.
is her. So if you
Right.
all can't remember shannonbattle.com, one, we're going to talk about some ginkgo biloba or something like that. But also look up as the I Can Lady.
Yes.
All right, Shannon. I will see you next Monday. Okay.
All right. Have a great rest
All
of the
right.
day.
You too. We come to another end of another amazing show. Oh, I'm glad you were, Wayne. Wow. It's been so wonderful. I've had an amazing time. I can't wait to talk to her again next week as she helps us get our mental health and our intellectual games up and in order. Be sure to join us tomorrow as we talk to Dr. Monica McCall about dealing with people with disabilities and what you can do in your life to help them and make it easier. All right, you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll see you tomorrow.